Hey y'all! Thought we'd pop in today to talk about one of the most important skills any fiber artist can develop, and that's choosing the right yarn for the right project. It's easy to walk into a craft store, fall in love with a color or texture, and toss a few skeins into the cart without giving it too much thought. Most of us have done it at least once, or more than once. Then we get halfway through a project and discover that the yarn doesn't behave the way we expect. Maybe it feels too heavy, too stiff, too fuzzy, or maybe the stitches we worked so hard on seem to disappear completely. The truth is that yarn isn't just a supply. It's one of the most important design decisions you'll make, and learning how to choose it wisely can completely change the quality of your finished projects. One of the first things to understand is yarn weight. When a fiber artist talks about weight, they're not referring to how heavy a skein feels in your hand. They're talking about the thickness of the yarn itself. This affects everything from how quickly a project works up to how warm it feels and how the finished fabric behaves. Lightweight yarns like lace and fingering are wonderful for delicate shawls, lightweight garments, and detailed work where you want a soft, elegant look. As you move into sport and DK weights, you start finding yarns that are versatile enough for many garments and accessories. Worsted weight is often considered the workhorse of the yarn world because it strikes such a nice balance between durability, warmth, and ease of use. Then, of course, you have bulky and super bulky yarns that create thick, cozy projects and give you the satisfaction of seeing progress quickly. While yarn weight is important, fiber content may be even more important because it determines how the yarn behaves once it's turned into fabric. Every fiber has its own personality. Wool is warm, elastic, and forgiving, making it a favorite for sweaters, hats, and other garments that need a little bit of stretch. Cotton is sturdy and breathable, making it perfect for warm weather projects and household items. Alpaca is known for its incredible softness and warmth, often creating luxurious pieces that drape beautifully. Linen starts out crisp, but softens with use, developing character over time. Then there are synthetic fibers like acrylic, which are affordable, widely available, and often very easy to care for. None of these fibers are inherently better than the others. The key is understanding what each one does best and matching it to the project you're planning. Blended yarns deserve a special mention, mostly because they combine the strengths of multiple fibers while minimizing some of their weaknesses. A wool and acrylic blend, for example, can provide warmth and elasticity while remaining affordable and easy to wash. Cotton blended with bamboo can create a fabric that feels cool, soft, and drapey. Sock yarns frequently include nylon because it adds durability to areas that receive a lot of wear. Many experienced crafters eventually discover that blends become some of their favorite yarns because they offer a practical balance between beauty and function. When you're standing in front of a wall of yarn trying to make a decision, don't overlook those blended options. Sometimes they provide exactly the combination of characteristics your project is going to need. Another thing worth considering is stitch definition. This is one of those concepts that beginners don't always think about until they've spent hours creating a pattern that nobody can actually see. If you're working cables, textured stitches, lace patterns, or other detailed designs, you'll usually want a yarn that allows those stitches to stand out clearly. Smooth, tightly spun yarns tend to do this very well. On the other hand, fuzzy fibers can create beautiful effects of their own, but they often blur fine details. That's not necessarily a problem if your goal is softness and warmth. The important thing is understanding what visual effect you're trying to achieve. Sometimes the prettiest yarn in the store isn't the best choice for a particular pattern because it hides all the work you've put into those carefully crafted stitches. Color can be just as important as fiber and weight when it comes to the final appearance of a project. Light colors tend to highlight texture and stitch patterns beautifully because shadows form naturally against the stitches. Dark colors can look dramatic and elegant, but they sometimes make intricate details harder to see. Then there are highly varied, speckled, and hand-dyed yarns that can create stunning visual effects all on their own. These yarns often become the star of the project, which can be wonderful if you're using a simple pattern. However, combining an extremely busy yarn with an extremely complex stitch pattern can sometimes create visual competition that prevents either one from shining. Thinking about how color and texture interact can help you create projects that feel intentional and balanced rather than overwhelming. One habit that can save a tremendous amount of frustration is making a swatch before committing to an entire project. I know swatching isn't everyone's favorite activity, and many crafters would rather dive straight into the fun part. But a small swatch can tell you an incredible amount about how a yarn behaves. You'll discover how the stitches look, how the fabric feels, how much drape it has, and whether you're getting the gauge you need. A swatch can reveal potential problems before you've invested dozens of hours into a project. Think of it as a small investment that protects a much larger investment of time and effort. Sometimes that little square of fabric ends up teaching you more about a yarn than the label ever could. It's also important to think about the practical purpose of the finished item. A cozy blanket has very different requirements than a pair of socks or a summer shawl. Blankets often benefit from durable, washable yarns that can stand up to regular use. Socks need strength and resilience because they experience constant friction. Shawls and wraps usually benefit from fibers with beautiful drape that allows them to flow naturally. Dishcloths require absorbent fibers that can handle water and repeated washing. Sweaters often need enough structure to maintain their shape while still feeling comfortable to wear. When choosing yarn, it helps to imagine how the finished item will actually be used in everyday life. That simple question often points you toward the best possible choice. One lesson many fiber artists learn the hard way is that a beautiful yarn doesn't automatically make it suitable for every project. Most of us have experienced some variation of this at one point or another. A yarn may feel wonderful in the skein, look gorgeous under the store lights, and seem absolutely perfect until you start working with it. Then you discover it lacks the drape, stretch, warmth, or structure you expected. While these experiments can be frustrating, they're also valuable learning opportunities. Every project teaches us something about how fibers behave and what characteristics matter most for different types of work. Over time, those lessons build confidence and intuition, making future yarn choices much easier and more successful. Another simple but incredibly useful habit is paying attention to the information printed on the yarn label. Those little labels contain a surprising amount of valuable information. They tell you the fiber content, the yarn weight, suggested hook or needle sizes, care instructions, and even yardage. They can also include dye lot information, which can be extremely important if you need additional yarn later on. Keeping labels until a project is complete can save you a lot of headaches. Some crafters tuck them into project bags while others snap a quick photo with their phone. However you choose to keep track of them, having that information available can make it much easier to care for finished items or find matching yarn in the future. As you spend more time knitting, crocheting, or exploring other fiber arts, you'll eventually develop your own preferences and instincts. You'll discover which fibers feel best in your hands, which yarn weights you enjoy working with most, and which combinations consistently produce results you love. That knowledge doesn't come from reading labels alone. It comes from experimentation, success, mistakes, and experience. Every project adds another piece to the puzzle. Before long, you'll start recognizing potential simply by touching a skein and imagining what it could become. That's one of the most rewarding parts of fiber crafting. The more you learn, the more possibilities begin to open up. Well, y'all, that's about it. I'd love to hear about a yarn choice that worked out perfectly for you, or maybe one that taught you an unfortunate lesson along the way. Happy stitching!